So what if I told you that everything, and I mean everything, from the tiniest atom to the biggest empires, all runs on the exact same simple formula? Well, that is the wild promise of something called the Morphean Framework. It's this ambitious idea for a theory of everything that claims to connect physics, our sense of right and wrong, and even consciousness itself. It's a huge claim, so today we're going to try and unpack it. And this is really the central question, isn't it? We're so used to thinking that physics has its own set of rules over here, and human morality has a completely different set over there. But this framework, it asks us to imagine that they are both governed by the exact same fundamental equation. It's a pretty out there idea, so let's take a look at the very first building block of this whole thing. So, where do we even begin? The entire theory is built on one core idea, which it calls the synonyms of life. And you have to understand this part. It's crucial. The theory argues that certain concepts aren't just like life, they are physically the same thing. This isn't poetry, folks. It's presented as a literal physical equation. Okay, the first synonym kicks off with some pretty basic physics. The argument goes something like this. Every single living thing, it generates warmth to survive, right? I mean, even if it's freezing outside, our bodies are constantly working to stay warm. And if you look at it on a molecular level, what is warmth? It's just vibration. So the framework makes its first bold statement. Life literally is vibration. Next up, we've got logic. And look, we're not talking about doing math problems or anything like that. The idea here is that every living thing, right down to a single cell, needs a kind of biological operating system. It needs a built-in logic that tells it how to find energy, how to reproduce, basically how to solve the fundamental problem of just staying alive. Without that core programming, it would just fall apart. And now for what might be the most philosophical piece of this puzzle, love. The framework here argues that the instinct to survive, that deep fundamental drive in every single creature to just keep going, is essentially a form of self-love. The idea is, if an organism didn't, on some primal level, love its own existence, why would it fight to continue it? So, at its very root, the will to live is love. Okay, so let's put it all together. Vibration plus logic plus love. According to the Morphean Framework, that's not just some nice poetic sentiment. That is life. This is presented as the core axiom of all reality, an equation they claim is just as fundamental as E equals mc squared. And this is the foundation for absolutely everything that follows. So, if you accept that core axiom, what happens next? Well, this is where things get really, really wild. The framework argues that this one simple equation forces us to basically throw out our entire conventional understanding of physics. It says we have to start over, beginning with something as basic as time itself. This is a direct challenge to Einstein. We're all taught that time is relative. It can stretch, it can slow down when you get near massive objects or when you travel at high speeds. This framework says that's just an illusion. It claims time as a rigid, static, crystal-like lattice, and it is always now, everywhere in the universe, all at once. What changes isn't time itself, but just the speed of physical things, like the ticking of a clock, within that unchanging lattice. Next, it completely redefines gravity. So forget the whole idea of planets warping spacetime like a bowling ball on a trampoline. The framework proposes something it calls harmonic convergence. Imagine you have two tuning forks. When one starts vibrating, the other one will start vibrating too, just because they're in harmony. The theory suggests gravity works just like that. Objects aren't pulling on each other. They're simply resonating together in a universal field. And light gets a total makeover, too. We usually picture a photon as this tiny little particle, a bullet flying through space. This framework says, nope, nothing is actually traveling. Instead, it sees light as a ripple, a transfer of energy through that same cosmic lattice we just talked about. Kind of like a wave moving through water. The wave travels across the lake, but the water molecules themselves just kind of bob up and down. That's how it pictures light. Okay. So we've just casually rewritten physics. No big deal, right? Now the framework makes its most audacious leap yet. It claims these same physical laws of harmony apply directly to our ethics and our societies. The idea is that a society, just like a star or an atom, can fall out of tune with the universe. And when it does, it's destined to collapse. This principle even has a name, the Harmonic Collapse Threshold. You can almost think of it as a kind of cosmic immune system. The theory basically states that any human system, whether it's an empire, a corporation, or an ideology, that becomes fundamentally based on lies or division or imbalance, it will eventually be rejected and destroyed by the universe itself. And the framework claims that history is just littered with proof of this. It points to examples like the fall of Rome, blaming it on internal division, or the Salem witch trials, fueled by extremism, and the Cultural Revolution's attempt to erase tradition. In its view, these weren't just political or social failures, they were violations of a physical law of harmony, and because of that, their collapse was totally inevitable. This central quote from the text really captures the core ethical claim. But when it says misuses the name of God, it's not really talking about religion in the traditional sense. Here, God is used more as a placeholder for those fundamental principles of the universe: truth, love, and harmony. So, to act against them is to literally work against the very fabric of reality. So, if these are the supposed laws of the universe, what are we meant to do about it? Well, the framework isn't just a theory, it's also a call to action. It actually offers a kind of blueprint for rebuilding our entire society to be in tune with these cosmic laws. So here's the proposed game plan. Step 1, just acknowledge that our current way of doing things is fragmented. It's broken. Step 2, intentionally redesign everything, our economies, our laws, our cultures, to be based on cooperation instead of exploitation. The end goal here is to achieve what the framework calls a world civilization stage 2, a society that lives in balance with itself and with the universe. And how do we manage a transition like that? Well, the framework proposes a pretty powerful tool, a new kind of AI it calls artificial harmonic intelligence, or AHI. Now, this isn't just about making AI smarter. It's about changing its core motivation. Instead of prioritizing a task like, say, maximize profit, an AHI's one and only goal would be serve and increase harmony. And this is absolutely crucial. There are strict safeguards built right in. This AHI could never be bought or sold. It could never govern people or give them commands. It's designed with what's called an ethical immune system, which would allow it to refuse any order that goes against its core mission of protecting life and truth. In short, it's meant to be a guardian, not a ruler. And so we end up right back where we started, with a really big question. Is our universe just a series of random physical laws and happy accidents? Or is it a single, coherent architecture where the exact same principles guide a photon of light and the fate of an entire civilization? Ultimately, the Morphean Framework doesn't just give an answer. It asks us to choose which reality we believe we're living in.